we could get started. Apologies for the late start. This is the 8th annual Barry D. Riccio lecture. And very quickly, before we get started with our distinguished speaker, Bill Brands, I wanted to ask Barry's wife, Kathy Anthony, to make a couple of comments.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all so much for coming this evening, and thanks to our host, especially Professor Anita Shelton, and Ed Worley, and Nancy Page, and all of you from the History Department and the EIU Foundation who have been so involved in the administration of this fund for so many years, and our special speaker, Professor Brands, whom we're really looking forward to hearing tonight. It's always a pleasure for me to meet so many longtime colleagues here at EIU and friends and former colleagues of Barry's over the years. You bring back many great memories for me. Tonight I'm joined by a couple close friends who came down with me from Urbana, Professor Walter Arnstein, who is here from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and is a very well-known British historian, and my friend Eva Nikeli, who is sitting right over here, and Eva is also visiting from Chicago and Champaign-Urbana. And some of you may remember Barry's mother, Felicia Riccio, who used to come regularly here. She's still alive and well. She's age 96 in Arizona. She was not able to come tonight, but she said to say thank you very much for all that you're doing on behalf of the fund. Just a couple quick words about this event and what it means to me, because it always means something very special. It's always one of the highlights of the year for me. It's hard to believe it's already the 8th annual talk that we've had, and it's 11 years now since my late husband has been gone. I've enjoyed watching the lecture series evolve over the last several years, especially here at your beautiful Doudna Fine Arts Center, where it's taken on, I think, a new life. I love having it here. And my life and the lives of everyone, I think, who have come to this lecture series have been really enriched by each of the 8 speakers that you have brought to campus. And why this lecture series and why this fund? I have been eternally grateful for the wonderful support and friendship that all of Barry's colleagues here at EIU provided to both of us over a period of several years. As some of you recall all too well, and there are people in this room who knew Barry and knew him very well, Barry's many cancer surgeries and chemotherapy treatments did not always fall at the right time. They often fell right at the start of the semester, after the start of the semester, when classes were already in session. So your history faculty here at EIU, with their already heavy teaching loads, chipped right in and volunteered to teach Barry's classes while he was recovering, sometimes for several weeks at a time. On countless occasions, many of you drove an hour each way to visit him in the hospital or to stop by our house. You kept in close touch with him during his years on medical leave, both in California and in Illinois, and here you supported him as a full-time faculty member with tenure, allowing him to achieve his lifelong dream. And it wasn't just the EIU faculty who shined in compassion. Even one of Barry's former students drove well out of her way to visit Barry in the hospital in Michigan, bringing along a tiny poinsettia plant that decorated his hospital room, and traveled out to California with us for Christmas, where it survived for about 2 years. So faculty and students alike here at EIU valued him as a colleague, as a teacher, and a friend. You created a rare academic workplace that had both a head and a heart, and I will never forget it. So while establishing this Memorial Lecture Fund, one of our goals was to help the EIU Department of History bring to campus the kind of person whom Barry would have loved to meet. Someone whose ideas about history could benefit a large number of people in a short amount of time. Someone whose special sparkle and intellectual electricity speaks to a wide audience. And as with all distinguished speakers in the past, at some point in the evening, I always engage in what Barry used to call iffy history. I don't know if he used that term or not, but he used to use it a lot. Iffy history. So, what if? So I would picture a happy, healthy Barry sitting here in this lecture hall and wondering, what would they be saying to each other if they had a chance to meet? What kind of questions would they be asking? Would they become friends? And I would say, from our dinner together, I think the answer to all those things would definitely be yes. And I'm always sure it would have been a lively and entertaining and provocative conversation. So I hope that you will enjoy tonight's speaker just as much as Barry would have, and just as much as I'm sure I will tonight. So thank you so very much.
much for all of your support. It's really terrific that we have this series. It's always one of the highlights of our year. Also want to thank EIU President Bill Perry who is absolutely essential to bringing knows Bill Brands from way back in their days at Texas A&M together. Also wanted to thank Dean Bonnie Irwin of the College of Arts and Humanities for her support, and our chair Anita Shelton as well. So a number of people worked together to make tonight possible. We are indeed very honored to have joining us this evening H.W. Brands, the Centennial Professor of American History at the University of Texas at Austin. Author of 25 books, including several bestsellers, including as well 2 books that were finalists for the Pulitzer Prize. Without question, Dr. Brands is one of the most prominent and influential historians in the country. Indeed, in 2009, at the invitation of President Barack Obama, Brands joined a small group of notable historians for an intimate White House dinner where they offered the president advice from an historical perspective. So from the White House to the Dowda, it doesn't seem that far. Tonight we will look for, we will ask Dr. Brands' help in understanding the complexities surrounding our economic system and the almighty but equally embattled dollar. Professor Brands.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Bill. I'm delighted to be at EIU. Thank you to the Riccio family. I wish I could have met Barry. He sounds like we would have had a lot in common, and you are going to hear some really iffy history tonight. And the reason it's so iffy is that it's not even going to be history. If you read the poster, I have said that I'm going to talk about the past, present, and future of the dollar. We historians tread on very treacherous ground when we get off of the past and essay into the future, but hey, what the heck, why not? First, I like to get to know my audience a little bit. How many of you are undergraduates here at EIU? Or for that matter, graduate students? Good. Okay, now, how many of your teachers are here? Okay. Now, I will not have the indelicacy to ask what incentives were offered to get the students to come. I have been in the faculty's position on many occasions in the past. Some of you have notebooks out. Unless your teachers want you to take notes, don't. Just listen. I tell my students, I don't really want them to take notes. I would much rather them listen to me and think about what I'm saying and engage in a conversation. I'm not going to say that much that's important, that is really timeless and needs to be written down. Occasionally I do tell my students, write this down. And I will tell you, at least at one point in the talk tonight, to write something down. But for the rest, just listen, think, and we'll talk. I'm going to talk for a while, and then we'll have a conversation. I'll take questions, and I hope to say something in the more formal part. Well, as you can see, it's not going to be very formal. My prepared part, we'll call it my prepared part, that will provoke you, that will cause you to say, wait, that doesn't sound right. And so feel free to object. And in fact, feel free to interject if you want to. It's even more fun when the dialogue gets going. Okay, so I am going to talk about the past and the present of the dollar and the future of the dollar. And I'm going to do all that. I'm going to discuss 200 years of the history of the dollar, and I'm going to get it all done in, 35 or 40 minutes. But having promised that, I'm going to start with something that doesn't sound like history. In fact, I am going to perform a magic trick. And it's a magic trick that is based on a piece of paper that I have here in my hands. Those of you up close can see whose picture's on it? Andrew Jackson. So that means it's a $20 bill. I wrote a book about Andrew Jackson several years ago. While I was working on it, there was a proposal to take Andrew Jackson's picture off the $20 bill and to replace it with the picture of Ronald Reagan. Now, I thought, don't do this. Not while I'm writing a book about Andrew Jackson. It was my great good fortune that the Senate Majority Leader at the time was Bill Frist. And do you know what state Bill Frist is from? And do you know what state Andrew Jackson is from? Tennessee. Bill Frist would not let Andrew Jackson be displaced. And there he is. But here's the magic trick. This piece of paper, this is a fairly well-worn $20 bill. It's torn a little bit. But one of the remarkable things about paper money is that unlike notebook paper or newsprint, if it starts to, those things, if they start to tear, they just they're gone. This stuff, it's half torn, but the quality of the paper is such that it resists being torn. This probably has a good year's life left in it. I won't keep it for a year. It'll get handed off to somebody else, who hand it off to somebody else, hand it off to somebody else. This is top quality paper. The artwork is quite impressive. In fact, if you can see up close, if you can remember what this picture of Andrew Jackson looks like, this is, I like to think of this as one of the great hair days in American history. Andrew Jackson never looked this good in real life. But one of the things that I objected to about this picture, this is the best portrait of Andrew Jackson. It's by a guy named Thomas Sully. And this is the one that I wanted to use on the cover of my book. But, well, he's here. And so the people who designed the dust cover said, no, we can't use the one off the $20 bill. Anyway, the artwork, some of the finest artists, engravers, are responsible for this. The lettering, this is exquisite work. But do you know how much this piece of paper is worth? This piece of paper, again, top quality paper, it actually has some particular, there are special kind of photo-optical features of this to prevent counterfeiting. And the art and everything. You know how much it costs the U.S. Treasury to produce this piece of paper? It's around between 3 cents and a nickel. So we'll just say 5 cents. We'll be generous. 5 cents. This piece of paper is worth 5 cents. But if I take this to, I don't know, a pizza store, and I decide that I'm hungry, and I want the biggest large pizza with all of the toppings. Can I get that for $20 here? Okay. Somebody will allow me to take this thing that is worth 5 cents and they'll give me something that's worth $20 in exchange. Now, if you ask me, that is magic. Where else can you do such a thing? Where else can you take something that is worth intrinsically a very small amount and convert it into something that's worth a lot more? The trick actually would be better if I used one of these that had Benjamin Franklin on the front. You know how much Benjamins are worth? $100. Okay, they're even better. In fact, I'm going to say something more about that later on. But I ask you, what is it that allows this particular magic trick to be performed millions of times every day in the United States? And especially with those Benjamins, millions of times outside the United States. Just as a matter of trivia, $100 bills circulate more widely outside the United States than inside the United States, for reasons we'll talk about later. So, there is real magic involved. You can go see a magician. You can pay money to see a magician. And they do these fancy things. Those are just optical illusions. This is real magic. It really happens. Okay. Now, do you know how it happens? Do you know why it happens?